Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
Might help if I turn on the wrong microphone, the right microphone. Egbert doesn't like our promos. He doesn't like anything we do, John. What's the deal with that?
Well, here's the thing. With all due respect to Egbert, we're getting a whole lot of love, and we appreciate the love that we're getting from listeners, people who listen live, people who listen to the podcast. So you know what? We could make that argument to Egbert, or maybe not. I think things are good the way they are, Brad.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, normally at this point in time, I defer to John Combest. That's who that is. I'm Brad Hildebrand. He's John Combest, and he gives his top three. John does this website every day for the past 22 years, every single day, Christmas, holidays, you name it, he does it. And he lists all the links to the important events going on, important events, stories, things like that going on in the state of Missouri, johncombest.com. And normally at this point in time, I say, John, give us the top three. I'm going to give you a list of the things that I want to talk about today. Okay, you ready for this?
Fantastic. I'm ready. Let's
Take
do
notes.
it. I love switching it up. You got to keep it fresh, Brad.
Jason at KWMU. I met him on Friday. That was interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Isn't he great?
NPR on January 6th. Okay, I listened to NPR over the weekend, and once again, NPR to me is like, well, I won't say it. Odyssey. We've talked about them. They're the owners of a bunch of stations here in St. Louis, KMOX, Y98, KZK. The NRA, Bill Eigel, Jay Ashcroft, and Mark Reardon from 97.1. All things I want to talk about this morning. Great. But first, John's going to give us the top three stories on johncombest.com for today.
The top three stories from the weekend, starting from our show on Friday, in the interim over the weekend. Number three is via the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and it's an inspirational tale about how to steal pandemic lunch money. A gentleman in the St. Louis area who has the inimitable name Howard Hughes III was highlighted in the Post-Dispatch yesterday. He was a key figure in the tale of a theft of nearly, allegedly, $20 million.
Whoa.
Go ahead, Brad.
I said, whoa. That's what I said when you said $20 million.
Sorry. I thought you were interjecting.
No.
Because maybe you knew this man.
No.
You hang out with a lot of Howard Hughes over the years.
Yes.
But the woman at the center of this case was highlighted by Post-Dispatch and other outlets over the last year. Her name is Connie Bobo, not to be confused with Bobo the Clown, although some would probably make that assertion. But she is we'll call her an urban entrepreneur who is who is accused of defrauding the federal child nutrition program out of $11 million and using the money to buy real estate and luxury goods.
Now
Howard, go ahead, Brett.
She's the one, if I'm not mistaken, she's the one that bought the fancy house in St. Charles County, isn't she?
Yeah,
the
it's
one?
right by Wapple Horse Park. You're
yes,
right.
yes. And it was
but why not? I mean, here's the thing: if you're providing a couple free lunches to kids using pandemic money, why shouldn't you live in a nice house? And by the way, why shouldn't your boyfriend get a brand new Mercedes G? I guess it wasn't new; it was 2017, so it was an old model. But the feature from the Post-Dispatch yesterday highlights the life of luxury that this gentleman was living thanks to your taxpayer dollars. And it's an inspirational piece. It shows that if you can reach out to a woman who's got a good alleged scheme to get her hands on some Biden bucks or some pandemic money, why not? Like, why not enjoy the fruits of your labor? It turned out to be a bit of a tangled web that he weaved. He's facing some lawsuits here and there. Amazingly, some people want some of their money back, which I think is pretty selfish of the feds. But so that's the number three story. And you can find that on yesterday's johncombest.com. Once again, if you don't want to pay the Post-Dispatch subscription fee, I have a unique link that allows you to circumvent the STL Today paywall. The number 2 story is a topic that we discussed on Friday, and that is the open congressional seat, the seat that is being vacated at the end of the term of U.S. Representative Blaine Luetkemeyer. And on Friday, on Mark Reardon's show on 97.1 FM in St. Louis, State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman announced that she will be running for that seat.
Yes, I heard that.
She's the first announced candidate, and what is likely to be a free-for-all in that district.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So, I'm sorry, Brad, go ahead.
I said it's going to be interesting, and ironically, I was listening to Mark Reardon's show on Friday and heard her right off the top of the show. It's at 3 o'clock.
I have the clip up on my website. I linked to it, I believe, on Saturday and maybe again yesterday.
Yep.
So you can find that as well at johncombest.com. Rosenbaum has a great piece that really breaks down the top contenders for that. Scott Fawn has a piece from last week that mentions the top contenders too. It is guaranteed when you have a safe partisan seat, whether it's for a Democrat seat or a Republican seat, you're going to have a free-for-all based on geography, based on where people are in their state legislative terms. So keep an eye on that. We'll be talking about that for a long time. And the number 1 story over the weekend was Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft indicated that there's a possibility that Joe Biden could be kept off the Missouri ballot. And more specifically, that Joe Biden could be kept off ballots in multiple states. So the notion there is that if the U.S. Supreme Court were to indeed uphold the Colorado Supreme Court ruling that Donald Trump will not appear on the Colorado ballot, Secretary of State Ashcroft is saying that opens the door for state Republican parties, or Republicans in Republican states, I should say, to keep Joe Biden off the 2024 presidential ballot. If it sounds like a lot of posturing, it is not necessarily from from Secretary of State Ashcroft's part, but it does show the ridiculous state that we could be in if Colorado keeps President Trump off the ballot. Well, and then I would just also plug from my website today, other key stories. Scott Fawn show, This Week in Missouri Politics, has every legislative leader. So the 2 top senators in the Missouri Senate, Democrat and Republican, the 2 top House members, House Superminority Leader Crystal Quaid, House Speaker Dean Plocher, they go through their top agenda items for the legislative session. As always, I have timestamps for the show. So if you just want to listen to Caleb Rowden or you just want to listen to John Rizzo, click on the timestamp. You could listen to the timestamp. If you're a red-blooded female and you love Dean Plocher's strong jawline, or you're a man and you just want to watch Crystal Quaid and put it on mute, the timestamps are available there for you. So those are our top 3 stories.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about the Jay Ashcroft thing. I keep wanting to call him John. Jay Ashcroft thing. I read that article about him, and he essentially is saying in so many words that he's doing it as a farce, because he's essentially saying, look, if these people can keep Trump off the ballot, I can keep Biden off the ballot. And I think he uses the reasoning that Biden has violated the Constitution by allowing people to come into our country through the border, essentially.
Right. And at this point, it's what we talked about. There's a lot of posturing there.
Right.
And in Ashcroft's defense, there are legislative proposals that would do the same thing. Senator Rick Bratton, who comes from the western part of Missouri, pointed out on social media this weekend that he's introduced a Senate bill that says that any candidate who is currently under an impeachment proceeding cannot appear on a ballot. So that of course means Joe Biden.
Right, and Bill Eigel is in the thing as well too. He's doing the same thing. So there's all these people. Okay, now let me backtrack a couple things here. Okay, last Friday we had Mark McCluskey on the air, okay?
That's right, we did.
And he said that he was considering congressional district CD3, Mo3, whatever you want to call it, because he lives very close to there. Now, you also, and give me her name again.
Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman. You could just call her MEC, not to be confused with the Missouri Ethics Commission.
It's interesting because she does not live in that district as well either, and she says she lives very close to it. And that the question was, once again, we talked about this on Friday. Friday that the way the laws are set up is you can run for a congressional district that you don't live in, but if you are elected, you do have to move there. So in other words, you have to live there. Although don't tell that to what's his face. Matter of fact, man, I'm bad at names this morning. I think
Bill Clay.
No. Who's the obnoxious guy from California that did the Senate, that did the impeachment thing with Trump, the first one, impeachment number 1. What's his name? The guy who looks like a robot. He talks like a robot. You know who I'm talking about.
Did you say robot?
Excuse me, robot.
I thought you said robot.
I get.
I don't know. It's not Schiff. It's not Adam Schiff.
Yeah. Adam Schiff.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Adam Schiff, it's interesting because he's in a little bit of trouble, but yeah, he'll get out of it because he technically doesn't live in California anymore. He lives in Maryland. And the reason they say that is because he applied for a home loan, and where he put down on the home loan and once again, I know people are going to go, well, he applied for a home loan. Okay, when you go to the bank and you put down wrong information, that is called bank fraud, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, right, if you say you live in Maryland and that's what you put down on your bank loan application, you must live in Maryland. So anyway, he did that. But going back to the thing with Jason, God, I'm all messed up.
Mary Elizabeth Coleman.
No, but going back to interview we had where we got a little bit of news from
McCloskey,
Mark McCloskey. Okay, so he says he's going to be at this event in St. Charles, which I didn't know about. So I went to that event, and who's the first person I run into? Jason Rosenbaum.
That's right, St. Louis Public Radio's own.
Right. And I told him, I said, look, I'm going to give you my compliment. I think you're the journalist. I mean, now you do a heck of a job. It's not like it's old school journalism, which nobody practices anymore. So the bizarre thing is, then he starts quoting me things that I have said because he listens to the show.
Well, let me ask you a serious question, Brad. Like, why are you surprised by that?
I guess as long as I've been in this business, I'm always surprised by people that like I view as like sort of icons, to him, to me, he's a journalistic icon because you even said he was doing video back in 2008, 2006.
Oh yeah. And a little bit before that, actually. Yeah. I mean, he pioneered that.
Right. Here's a guy who is I would say in the true sense of the word, a true journalist where when you listen to him, you're not exactly sure where he's coming from. It's,
and isn't that a throwback?
Yeah,
isn't that a compliment?
That's exactly what it is.
I don't mean to derail, but I will pile on here, Brad. And I promise this will be the last positive thing I say about Jason for a while, because I say a lot of glowing things about him, and I hope it doesn't give him any heat. He passes the ego test, which is if you're a guy and you have a guy friend or you have a female friend or whoever, and a good test is, can you do something that for some people might check their ego a little bit? For example, Brad Hildebrand and John Combest enjoy dunking on St. Louis Public Radio.
Right.
Now, Jason could be, I won't say this word on the air, but he could be a little female dog about it if he wanted to and complain and be defensive and passive aggressive about it. But he's not. And so that shows that his ego isn't so big that John and Brad can't poke a little bit at St. Louis Public Radio, and Jason would internalize that and get real mad and not talk to us and be rude to Brad or something like that.
It's funny you should mention that because him and I began to spar a little bit because of the fact that he's setting up his stuff and he first off, and I said to him, I said, Jason, just exactly what I've said to you. I said, what I'm disappointed with your station is you've got all this staff, you've got all these news people, and you do only 1 hour of local programming a week, a day. And he goes,
and what did he have to say about it?
Well, he was going, well, we do a lot of local. I go, Jason, once again, you take network feeds all day long with the exception of your local show at noon. Everything is network. You may have local cut-ins during, morning edition and all things considered and stuff like that, but it's national programming that you shoehorn a couple little local newscasts in, and you do no local programming. You've got this huge staff, and he was starting, and then the other thing was, and he comes right out and says to me, and apparently he remembered me talking about this, the fact that they've gone union.
Right.
And he told me he's the guy that did that.
Yeah.
He's the guy that started the union push. And I said, I have a real problem with that. And it was sort of funny because standing right next to us was a Channel 2 photographer who I know is IBW, so his ears sort of perked up. And I said to Jason what I've said to you, I've said on the air, I've said to anybody. I have no problem with unions. I do have a couple problems with unions, but that's a whole other story. But I have been a union member. I was a member of AFTRA. I was a member of IBW Local 4, both local unions, okay? My problem is that he works for a government company, a government agency, and it's unionized. I don't think that government should have unions within them, because I think that what happens on that is that you can't, you get into a situation where the unions are more powerful in a governmental situation than in a private sector situation.
And you could see this with air traffic controllers or anything in that regard, right?
Right, because of the fact it's a little bit different when you got guys who are working, at Shell Oil Refinery who go on strike, but yet when you got it's a little bit different, and it's a lot different when you have people that work for the federal government. And he actually sort of said, I can't remember his exact words, he said, well, I'll give you that. The idea being is that once again, if it's 97.1 that goes union, and if it's or
Egbert 104.5,
right? Egbert 104.5 goes union. I get that, but see, the other thing is my problem. The whole situation with unions. If you go back to the history of unions did a lot of good things for the people way back when, because of the fact that there was no OSHA, and you had people performing dangerous duties on their job, and the boss just said, the worker could say, well, if I do that, I might get my hand cut off, and the boss would say, yeah, well, you know what, we can find somebody else with two hands, so just do what I'm telling you to. Okay,
right.
Once again, the unions came in and cleaned a lot of that up, but now with OSHA, it's to the point where it's like, okay, the unions are like really not in a position to do that anymore, because all you got to do if there's a safety issue on a work site, being union or non-union, you drop a dime to the OSHA people and the guy comes out and he inspects.
I love the fact that you use the antiquated phrase drop a dime, and we have folks that are Gen Z right now listening to this on the drive to Jefferson City to start the legislative week that are like, what does it mean to drop a dime?
Right,
now, Brad, we're up against time. I will say, for Rosenbaum's part, he doesn't control what the station, how much is national and how much is local.
I understand.
So if it was up to Jason Rosenbaum, I'm sure they would have a lot more local coverage.
But here's my analogy. Okay, you've got a team. Let's say you've got, we go back to football, we had the St. Louis Rams. Okay, we've got the St. Louis Rams, and we've got, Kurt Warner and all the big guys from,
Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce.
The greatest show on turf, okay? And the coach has gotten sitting on the bench. And you go to the game and you're going like, okay, where's the big guys at? Okay? KWMU has a whole team, a whole bench full of really good people that never make it on the air. Never.
Agree. You got Wissentowski, you got Rosenbaum,
right.
You have some really good people there. I agree.
And they sit on the bench, and what do you get? And the sad part of this is, it's my complaint with religious radio with this company called EMF, where all they do is
you call them the God Squad.
Well,
right?
they buy a station, they stick a satellite dish into the transmitter site, and they just run the same program. You can drive cross country, and I've done it before between here and Kansas City. I've hit the scan button. I've heard K-Love on 5 different stations. It's the same damn thing, okay? There's no local programming whatsoever, okay? And what I say, that's a waste of broadcast spectrum, because of the fact that nowadays you can just stream that. It's back in the day.
I agree. Now, their point, though, I think, Brad, station management would say, well, if you want the information badly enough, you should go to St. Louis Public Radio's website and read it there.
But I'm listening to the radio. They're a radio station. They're called St. Louis Public Radio.
They're not St. Louis Public website.
Right.
I'll give you that.
It's not St. Louis.
I can't believe you have me defending St. Louis Public Radio.
It's not St. Louis Public website, like you said. It's St. Louis Public Radio.
That's good. That should be part of our shtick. I'm going to start referring to it as St. Louis Public website when I do the top 3.
All I'm saying is put your A team on the air, do local news, and on the weekends they do 0 local programming. It's all, most of it's canned stuff from the network, except for,
This message was brought to you by Diane Ream's Voice Box.
Okay, well, we have to move on from that. I'm not going to take another shot at Diane Reams. Okay, it's 7:23.